On October 1st, 2013, federal agents entered a public library in San Francisco. They arrested 29-year-old Ross Ulbricht. Ulbricht ran the largest, most sophisticated online market for illegal drugs in history. He named it Silk Road, a reference to the ancient trade routes that connected China to Europe beginning in the 2nd century BC. Ulbricht hoped to create his own modern-day marketplace, except his would sell hardcore drugs and other illegal goods. Over the 2 years and 10 months that Silk Road operated, federal prosecutors say it processed nearly $214 million in sales using Bitcoin. The site operated on a hidden part of the internet called the dark web. Prosecutors say a journal the FBI found on Ulbricht's computer stated he wanted to create a website where people could buy anything anonymously with no trail whatsoever that could lead back to them. Unfortunately for Ulbricht, he did leave a trail of digital breadcrumbs that would ultimately take him down and his empire with it. Ulbricht was born on March 27, 1984, in Austin, Texas. He was a Boy Scout, attaining the highest rank of Eagle Scout just like his dad had done. He had a happy childhood, growing up an easygoing hipster but serious student who scored 1,460 on his SATs within the 96th percentile and got a full ride to the University of Texas at Dallas, where he studied physics. He then won another full scholarship for a master's at Penn State in materials science and engineering. It was at Penn that he evolved into a hardcore libertarian, a political philosophy that advocates individualism and minimal state involvement in people's lives. He was a fan and follower of libertarian economist Ludwig von Mises, who opposed government interference in the economy. When then presidential candidate Mitt Romney asked what is America's greatest challenge, Ulbricht responded like this on his YouTube channel.
I think the most important thing is getting us out of the United Nations.
Ulbricht wanted to create a world free from institutional or governmental control. That mindset led him to create Silk Road in January 2011. You couldn't type in a regular web address to get to Silk Road or use a regular web browser. You needed software called Tor that works as a web browser. Tor was developed by the US Navy as a way of communicating privately over the internet. It conceals the real IP address of computers on the network to hide the identity of the user, and it can't be traced by the government. Silk Road's address used a bunch of random numbers and letters that ended with .onion. Ulbricht made the site by teaching himself how to code. When he needed more help, he reached out on a Bitcoin community forum, writing, "I'm looking for the best and brightest IT pro in the Bitcoin community to be the lead developer in a venture-backed Bitcoin startup company." Anyone interested was to contact him via his email, russulbricht@gmail.com. Making his email public would later come back to haunt him. He also got coding help from a buddy of his from undergrad, Richard Bates. Ulbricht had no choice but to eventually tell his friend what he was up to. He also told his girlfriend, Julia V. One day, he showed her the psychedelic mushrooms he was growing and selling as a starter product on his new website. Silk Road would eventually be a marketplace for all kinds of drugs: weed, cocaine, LSD, ecstasy, heroin. This fit Ulbricht's libertarian mindset. He believed that whatever someone decided to put in their body was their choice, and no one else's, least of all, the government's. Ulbricht also believed everyone had the right to self-defense when guns started appearing on Silk Road. However, he realized he didn't need the controversy and soon took weapons off the site. To limit scams, there was a rating system for sellers, similar to Amazon reviews. If a seller sold bad drugs and got a poor rating, it would hurt their sales. The drugs arrived by mail with fake return addresses. They'd be slipped inside CD and DVD cases. Some sellers got even more creative and put them in little ripples of cardboard. The packages had printed mailing labels, rather than handwritten ones, to look like they came from a legitimate business. Ironically, that backfired. The printed labels actually attracted the suspicion of authorities. In the summer of 2011, Department of Homeland Security agent Jared Deryegiayan learned of a small, neat package with a printed address going through Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. It contained a single pink pill of ecstasy, which was also suspicious because usually they shipped in bulk. Soon, 2 or 3 packages began arriving, then 50, then up to 1,000 a day. Many came from the Netherlands, which is a notorious source of drugs. Agent Deryegiayan visited an address where one of the packages was to be delivered, chatted with the roommate of the buyer, who said the drugs came from a site called Silk Road. Deryegiayan had never heard of Silk Road before. He did some digging online and came across an article written, "Buying cocaine can get you shot. What if you could buy and sell drugs online, like books or light bulbs? Now you can. Welcome to Silk Road." As Silk Road came into the spotlight, Ulbricht's college friend Richard, who helped him with programming, said he urged him to shut it down. Ulbricht and his girlfriend Yulia broke up soon after the launch of Silk Road. She said one of the reasons was because of the insane pressure she felt to keep his secret. Ulbricht lied to her and Richard, telling them he had sold the business to someone else and no longer had anything to do with it. He moved to Australia for a while and lived with his sister in Sydney. Around this time, he was contacted through the site by a person going by the name Variety Jones. Variety Jones became his right-hand man and someone Ulbricht described as a real mentor. Neither knew the other's true identity. Variety Jones pointed out the gaping holes in security on Silk Road. Ulbricht decided to encrypt all the files on his computer. This is the actual laptop he used to run Silk Road. He put in a kill switch that would automatically shut down his device by pressing a predetermined key in case authorities rushed in at the last minute. He also prepared an escape plan if needed, including destroy laptop, hard drive, find a place to live on Craigslist for cash with a new identity. To better understand how Silk Road operated, Department of Homeland Security agent Deryegiayan posed as a buyer and made 52 undercover purchases. He also seized thousands of packages, linked certain sales back to their source, and arrested several people. His biggest get came when he tracked down a Ross Ulbricht employee, a moderator on Silk Road's user forums called Cirrus. He forced her to hand over her account, and then he pretended to be her. Deryegiayan, posing as Cirrus, got assignments directly from Ross Ulbricht. He was not the only federal agent chatting with the boss of Silk Road. DEA agent Carl Force was part of a task force in Baltimore that was also investigating. Carl Force used the username Knob and posed as a drug dealer originally from the Dominican Republic. He was on friendly terms with Ross Ulbricht, who had no idea he was speaking with a DEA agent, an agent who, in a twist in the tale, turned out to be corrupt. Carl Force convinced Ross Ulbricht to pay him $50,000 in Bitcoin by claiming he had insider information from a government employee. The government agencies were still nowhere closer to figuring out who was Ross Ulbricht. The DEA enlisted the help of the FBI's cybercrime unit in New York, as it had more technological know-how and experience with the dark web. FBI Special Agent Chris Tarbell knew that in order to catch Ross Ulbricht, they had to wait for them to make a mistake. And according to the FBI, the Ross Ulbricht did finally slip up about a year after the agency started investigating. In May 2013, investigators noticed coding errors, vulnerabilities, on the Silk Road website that leaked IP addresses. As a result, they discovered the Silk Road servers were housed in a data center in Iceland. By the way, Ulbricht's defense team doesn't buy this explanation. They believe the NSA spied illegally and tipped off the FBI to the server's location. Agent Tarbell flew to Reykjavik, where Icelandic authorities gave him a drive with information from the servers. So when IRS agent Gary Alford ran another search on Ulbricht, he found that Homeland Security file on the fake IDs, which cemented his belief that they had the right guy. The pieces of the puzzle finally came together when Alford got on the phone with the other agencies to see what they all had. Alford mentioned the username Frosty that he had found on a forum. That flawed FBI agent Tarbell, who knew Frosty to be the name of the computer Ross Ulbricht used. Bingo. They knew Ross Ulbricht was behind Silk Road. They needed concrete evidence. They had to catch Ulbricht while his laptop was open and he was logged in on Silk Road as Ross Ulbricht. An unlocked computer was also necessary so agents could access his files. This would be difficult to pull off. On October 1st, 2013 at 3:08 p.m. local time, Der Jägerin saw Ross Ulbricht log on. Ross Ulbricht was sitting in the science fiction section of the San Francisco Public Library's Glen Park branch. Der Jägerin started up a conversation with Ross Ulbricht while posing as Cirrus. Der Jägerin knew Ross Ulbricht was now looking at an admin screen. He gave the signal to the other agents positioned in the library to make a move. A commotion soon broke out near Ulbricht. A woman yelled, "Fuck you!" as the man appeared like he was about to punch her. When Ulbricht turned around to see the fight, an agent swooped in and grabbed his opened laptop. Ulbricht was arrested and taken away. The man and woman who were arguing were in fact undercover agents who created a distraction. Ulbricht's family and friends were shocked. How could the kind, fun, loving man they knew be the same person who ran a global drug bazaar? They couldn't believe it. On February 5th, 2015, a federal jury found Ross Ulbricht guilty on all 7 counts. Before sentencing, Ulbricht wrote a letter to the judge, begging for a more lenient sentence.
I've had my youth, and I know you must take away my middle years, but please leave me my old age. Please leave a small light at the end of the tunnel, an excuse to stay healthy, an excuse to dream of better days ahead, and a chance to redeem myself in the free world before I meet my maker.
On May 29, 2015, U.S. District Judge Catherine B. Forrest delivered her sentence.
Mr. Ulbricht, it is my judgment delivered here now on behalf of our country that on counts 2 and 4 you are sentenced to a period of life imprisonment to run concurrently. On count 5 you are sentenced to 5 years imprisonment to run concurrently. On count 6 you are sentenced to 15 years imprisonment also concurrent. And for money laundering in count 7 you are sentenced to 20 years also concurrent. In the federal system, there is no parole and you shall serve your life in prison.
After 11 years in prison, Donald Trump won the election in 2025 and gave the pardon full and unconditional to Ross Ulbricht and said he called Ulbricht's mother to break the news to her. Ulbricht was released from a federal prison in Arizona late on Tuesday following Trump's announcement, according to Federal Bureau of Prisons records.